Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
So we're going to count down our top villains of Brook City. If you're watching this, you're probably already a huge fan of Brook City, or you kind of want to see what order should I play the villains in. And one of the good things about this game is you can mix up the villains in different cases. Now, each villain comes with usually a case and a cop that can be played with it, but you can definitely mix these up and do whatever you want to do with them. So we're going to count down my top favorite ones to play. Some will be harder, some will be easier, but these are the ones I had the most fun playing in the order that I had the most fun or most epic, and I'll kind of talk about that as I go through my experiences with the different villains. Now, I've mixed and matched these quite a bit, and I've played them probably the most with the case they're supposed to come out with, but there were some things I liked about some villains and didn't like about other ones. So here we go, we'll start our list. My least favorite villain to play was Anatoly Volkov, and he comes with a Delta Keys expansion. And he's one of the reasons why I put the expansion down a little bit lower, because I didn't enjoy playing with him. First of all, I found him to be very difficult and very annoying. Basically, he's going to get influence put on him anytime he's on the board. So if he gets placed on the board, you have to run over there, and you're going to have to take care of him. Now, if you have somebody with a lot of guns, he has a high resistance to guns, so it's going to be a little bit of a problem to get him off the board. I've spent a couple rounds trying to get him off the board. He's got 2 influence. I'm halfway to losing already. I found it to be very annoying. I didn't like the fact that whenever he's on the board, I'm getting influence. 4 influence is gone. There's ways to prevent that by giving up things that you're constantly giving up, and I just didn't find him to be a very fun villain to play with at all. In fact, I kind of found him annoying because he took away from some of the more fun things I wanted to do, which was investigate the cases and kind of moving around and busting crimes and stuff, where I had to heavily focus on him. So if you're looking for a strong villain, and you want somebody who's going to be very pesky and very difficult to beat, I think he's one to go for. I think he fits in with the theme of Delta Keys pretty well, but it wasn't somebody that I find myself going back to, and I found myself using him less and less, and when he kind of came up as a villain I wanted to try out for these purposes, it was somebody I wasn't looking forward to playing very much. So I would say, if you're playing with new people, use him last, or if you're looking for more difficulty, you want something a little bit harder, I think he's somebody you can go after. But he made the experience kind of linear for me of having to go after him and after him and after him. Anytime he's on the board, it's like all decks on hand, you gotta run and you gotta get him off. At least that was my experience with him. My number 6 favorite villain to play at is Leeta. She comes with a velocity set, and in this one you're trying to stop the bomb of the bus, so think speed. And what she's going to do is she's going to lose. You're going to lose if you get 3 influence put on her, but she's going to be going from in custody, where you're going to arrest her quite a bit, and go to her hideout. Once her hideout gets enough influence on it, she's going to move out randomly on the board, rinse and repeat. A lot of the cards are going to come out. So what the criminals are going to do in this one, her band of thugs, if you will, which very much look like Joker's thugs, is they're going to put influence on her if you don't take care of them. So with her, you're going to have to go out and full court press and take care of her thugs that are going around the board, and you have to manage them, especially the ones that put influence on her, because she only requires 3 influence in order to lose, so she can be very difficult in that regard. So you're definitely going to want to take care of those thugs and do a full court press on those, as they're going to kind of mount up on you as you go. She also moves her location a lot, right? So she's going to be arrested, she's going to go to her hideout, which is off the board, and then be placed on a random location on the board. So she's going to be moving around a lot. She might just pop up totally across the city. You need to get over there to her the quickest that you can, and with limited players, you can't really take care of the map a lot. That can be pretty difficult to do. So she's a little bit easier, I think, with more players. As you spread out across the board, you can kind of manage those random locations that should be coming out on. If her random location is close to you, the game might be a little easier. If the random location is further away constantly, then it may be a little bit more difficult. She's not a bad player to play against, just not one of my favorites, as that random effect of it kind of kept it down for me a little bit. My 5th favorite villain to play against is Ah Long. He comes in the Keys to the Kingdom expansion, and what makes him kind of fun to play is that he's easy. He's probably the easiest bad guy to play against, and he's a great place for new players to start at. But as you become more familiar with the game, he kind of becomes a piece of a cake. So he's going to have asset tokens out on the board. As there are a number of asset tokens on the board, you will place influence on him. You really just have to manage that a little bit and then go take care of the influence, which you can kind of easily take off of him. So he's a little bit easier to manage. When he's out there, he's doing stuff and you have to take care of it. but it doesn't need to be your focal point. So if you're playing with a case that you really want to kind of invest in, maybe a harder case, maybe take a little bit easier of a villain, which you would do. He has a really cool look to him, and I like playing him. It's my favorite thing about that expansion, The Keys to the Kingdom, is playing against him, because I find him not frustrating. I find him to be very fun to play against. I find him to be maybe easy is great, because you do need somebody. You need somebody that's like a little bit easier for new people to come into the game. And he showcases off what they can do a little bit. So in that regard, I do like him. I do like the case, or not the cases, the crimes that are coming out with him. I find they're very interesting and very fun. So he is somebody that could be, for newer gamers, will probably be very high, but as you become more familiar with the game, he might trickle down a little bit as you just find the ease of play to be too simple. He also has a variable difficulty, let's say, because a lot of times it's going to be rolling the dice. If you get a crit hit, a critical hit, then something bad will happen to you. So if you're rolling a lot of bad critical hits, things could escalate very quickly. If you get lucky and don't roll any critical hits, then, things will be a little bit easier on you. So, a lot of variability in him, which can be a plus or minus. Have that little bit of luck factor that's going to be in there, but that's going to turn some people off, I think, as rolling the dice constantly and letting the randomness of the game take over versus decisions that you're making will be off-putting to some. I really like this one. I think it's really fun, but you can be done in a snap if the rules are not in your favor. So, that's all along. My fourth favorite villain is Gus Ferguson, and this is where things get kind of tricky because a lot of the other villains are going to have a negative impact to them. Like, you might not like rolling dice, or it's extremely difficult to win. This is the point where the game becomes more to your playing style, and the villains become very cool. So what Gus is going to do is going to move around. He's delivering packages. You can guess what are in those packages. And as he delivers these packages, you're going to gain influence on him. A number of influence, you'll lose the game. So you don't want him to deliver these packages. Now, you have other things going on because you want to be able to win the game by going through the clues, right? And you want to be able to win the game by solving the case. But he's going to be moving around the board, causing havoc around. And it's you kind of know which way he's going to move, and you kind of plan for that because it's programmed out through the AI system that's utilizing for his movement. So you can kind of plan ahead for that kind of stuff. It might be good if you got, a 4-player game to get somebody on Gus and, keep tripping him up so he doesn't accomplish his goals. But then again, you can let him accomplish a couple of these because a couple won't hurt you. But as it begins to mount up, it becomes, more difficult for you to manage that. So he's going to be in his own car, which is a really cool looking car, and he'll be moving around the board delivering these packages. And it's a moving target, although in a pre-programmed way. It's very neat. It's very different. It has a fresh feel to it that the other villains don't really do. As he's moving around, he's just delivering packages, he's not fighting back, but you don't want him to make these deliveries, and it feels very different. Now, he comes in the core box, and he's going to be one of the first ones you play. He was the third one that I played when I was going through things. He probably the third or the most difficult are the ones that come in the core box, but he's definitely one that just feels different, especially when you're playing the first 3 people. It just has a different look to it. He's got a very striking look. The car is very cool. And all of a sudden, you're like, wow, this game can do something a little bit different. It doesn't have to be the same kind of formula that's going on. And it stretches the bones of the game a little bit. And for that, I like him quite a bit. He could have been a little bit higher, to be honest. I do like this one quite a bit. I think that you will, too. So my third favorite's Mikey Scott. And this one's a little funny and a little peculiar. Mikey Scott is a musician. He's putting tapes out, pirated tapes out across the city. And as tapes come out, you'll place an influence on him. So he's going to be kind of spreading his influence, his music around the town, and you need to put a stop to this, and you can't allow this to happen while you're trying to solve whatever case that you're working on, which would be the crime. But you got to kind of manage Mikey a little bit versus like trying to bust him all the time. You should make sure that these things don't go out through the city and become overcoming the city where there'll be too much influence on him and he'll have too much power as he goes through. So this gives you a system of like managing something rather than trying to beat it, which is like Anatoly would be somebody that like you have to beat him down at all times because if he gets on the board, he's just generating time on the board and that will cause you to lose. Where here, he's having influence over the board and you're going to want to try to manage that influence. So let him getting away with some is fine, but not too much on that case. It's kind of a fine line that you're going to walk with him is how much influence over the city are you willing to give him to accomplish your goals. There might be a time where you're like, I'm going to let him go because I'm going to dive into this case and try to ram it through really close, and you may or may not succeed on it depending on what case you're trying to solve. So he's a really fun aspect, and it's fun because you can almost press your luck with him a little bit about how much you want to let him go and kind of ignore him. And then sometimes you're going to need to bust him and go after him pretty hard, and are you going to be able to accomplish that or not? So, in that regards, I like him. The crime itself is a little wonky and silly, and I don't know if it would be like a full-length movie, but maybe an episode of a television show. But he is one that I've had a lot of fun playing, and once again, it would probably be better for newer people to the system. This would be one that I would add in for them. Slade Harper is my number 2 villain, and the first one that I ever played, and probably the most straightforward of them. You're going to be putting out these corporate holdovers, which are like businessmen across the city, and as they gain influence, if they gain 3 or more normally, you're going to put 1 on Slade. If Slade gets 4, he wins. So once again, we're still dipping in that same thing. The bad guy needs a number of influence on him, and then he'll be able to win. It's a trope they're going to be seeing over and over again. Velocity kind of changes that up, but in the core box, Slade is somebody who is very basic and has a very routine play that he's doing to take these corporate hangovers. Now, he's not killing people, murdering people. He's doing everything in the boardroom. Thematically, it's cool. It's different than what some of the other people are doing. But does it feel different? Probably not. And that might hold it back just a little bit. But it is probably the most straightforward and basic and a great place to start for your first time playing. It's very simple. These people get influenced. They add it on to him. And, he's a rich playboy, and all that kind of plays into it where you're instantly not going to like him, and I think that fits in very well. He's somebody I go back to over and over again. So when I showcase the game, I usually start with Slade and say, hey, here's the game, learn the mechanisms. This is a great place to start. So you end up playing with him a lot. And then what you'll do is just switch out the cases a little bit and keep the same villain, and maybe switch out the villain later, depending on what your playing style is. He does come in the core box. He's exactly where I would start. He's fun. He's exciting, a little pressure luck to him, just a few things going on, but he isn't overly complicated. I think he is a treat for that. So this is one that you definitely should try out, probably in your first play or 2. So Mercy is my favorite villain to play, and it's a little bit different. And I think the first time you play, she may not be your favorite, but as you go through the system, you want to reward things that play a little bit differently. So what she's going to have is, you're going to lose if you get 3 sacrifices. And what you're going to have is people who are abducted and kidnapped during the game. This one has a big serial killer vibe to it. And if those cards get enough influence on them, they're going to flip over, and that person will have died. And if there's 3 sacrifices made, you're going to lose the game. It's a little bit different than the progress system that we're seeing. Although it plays, roughly it's the same. You're just flipping this card over instead of placing influence on her. But once they're dead, they're dead. You can't bring somebody back to the life. So a lot of times if the bad guys get influence, you can take that influence off. I can do that until the person is killed. But once they're killed, they're dead. It's not a whole lot I can do. Now, Mercy is somebody who isn't difficult when you find her to defeat. Together there's only 2 times the number of players, so it's not very difficult, and somebody can do that. But you still have to manage what's going on with the people being abducted, and you cannot ignore them at all. Now, you might ignore one and have a sacrifice, and, morally you're like, wow, did I just do that? But I couldn't drop everything and get over there, and maybe I wouldn't have had time to. Time would have been short. There's only so much time you have in this game. And it brings up some very interesting decisions, Mercy does. And she brings up some very interesting moral decisions and moral quandaries you're going to have when you're playing this game. And how do you feel about that? Now, of course, these are just cards, it's not actual people, and things aren't really happening. But as you dive into the game, you're going to feel like it. And Sixth Cycle has a great atmosphere that it's created, and a very good expansion. And the more you get into that story, the more your jaw's going to kind of drop as you play through it. And Mercy's a big part of that. I like how, you're like, wow, that person, even though it's just a card, it's like, okay, now they're gone. 2 more and I'm done. Whoa, 1 more and I'm done. And you sacrifice one of them on your own. You possibly could have saved them, but you're not Captain America, right? You're just a cop. You're a beat cop. And you're doing the best that you can, but did you do the best you can? And all these things kind of pop up through Mercy. I think that's really fun. Very cool. She's very fun to play. She's one I like to play over and over again. She kind of works thematically the best with Sixth Cycle, but I think you can play with her anywhere and have a great time. And I think that timer that she has, you got to take care of that, is very, very fun. And that's why she's my favorite person to play against. Mercy, she is somebody I love to take down. She is somebody that is really fun to bust because she's so gruesome and she is so vile, and how she hurts people, and you want to prevent that from happening, and that makes a great villain. So those are the countdown of the top 7 villains for Brook City. Those are my favorite ones, and countdown. Who are yours? Who did you enjoy playing? Was there any reason why you like somebody that I didn't? What kind of insight can you bring to me so I can learn a little bit more about these characters and which ones that people are liking? And maybe I missed something. What did I miss? Let me know. Please like, subscribe to the channel. It really helps out. And I'll see you guys next time.